Candidates Forum, which is sponsored by the Indian American Association of Millburn and Short Hills. I'm Jyoti Sharma, and this is Dr. Wadwa, Tithi Majumdar, and Padmaja Chinta. We all feel very happy that you're all here today. Thanks for coming out. Thanks to our esteemed candidates for the Township Committee who have come out and given this opportunity to the community to hear directly from them. Before we start, I would like to invite Tithi Malhotra, who will talk a little bit about Indian American Association.
Thank you, Jyoti. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today, especially Jody and Tara. We really appreciate you taking the time and making time for the community. Indian American Association was formed a couple of years ago. As you can see, we have a lot of Indians moving into town, and most of them are Indian and American, and we would like our community to be more involved and get to understand the American process, and it's a process where we hope our children will contribute more and be a contributing member of this community. So saying that, I will hand it over to Rupali and Jyoti to carry on with this candidate forum.
Thank you. Before we begin, we would like to go over the rules of the candidates forum. The time will be monitored, and the moderator will be in charge of determining which candidate will speak to which order, and we'll make sure that the selection is random. Rupali and I will co-host the question and answer session, which are predetermined, and they've already been shared with the candidates. The audience members will also be allowed to ask the questions. That will be third part of the debate. Padmaja Chinta from IA will distribute index cards and pencils to anyone who wishes to ask a question. If you're interested to ask a question, please write it on an index card and hand it over to Padmaja Chinta. Padmaja Chinta will hold a card when there is 30 seconds left or 15 seconds left for the answers. So I think we can get started. Part A is the candidates' opening remarks, which is 3 minutes each, followed by Part B, which will be predetermined questions, followed by Part C, which is audience question and answers, and Part D, which will be candidates' closing comments. So with that, I'll ask Tara to start with her opening remarks.
Hi, I'm Tara Purpose, and I'm running for Township Committee. Thank you for coming out today to have this conversation. Oh, thank you.
And thank you to the Indian American Association for hosting us today. This morning, I attended the solemn observance of mourning and outrage at Temple B'nai Abraham. Yesterday, we experienced a national tragedy in Pittsburgh when an evil man went into a temple, spewing hate speech and firing bullets. This is another example of why we all need to come together in love, embracing our diversity and each other. We are stronger together here in Millburn and across the country. While this disgusting display of hatred was happening, my opponent released a video from the prior debate that was sliced and diced to make me look inexperienced, stupid, and however else her campaign is trying to frame me. Instead of running a campaign about her non-existent accomplishments during the past 3 years, she has resorted to smears and attacks on me. Why? Because she cannot stand on her own record. She has none. Today, I am here to talk about the issues and how I plan to move Millburn forward. I grew up locally, not in Millburn, but in Livingston. I came to Millburn by choice to open my business 5 years ago. When the business was up and running, I moved to town with my daughter who attends Millburn High School. Before that, I graduated from Columbia University and worked in the corporate world, which did not resonate with me. My first entrepreneurial experience was opening a Montessori preschool where I could work and spend time with my young daughter. My passion led me to teach yoga, to open Green Nectar Juicery, and to move to Millburn. You need 3 things to have a successful business, a successful project, or a successful town. You need good planning, good budgeting, and good customer service. It's obvious that all three are lacking in the way the Township Committee runs the town. This is not a one-issue election, but let's be honest. Complete Streets has had a lasting negative impact on our town. So I would like to use it as an example of my 3 points: planning, budgeting, and customer service. Why has Complete Streets been such a disappointment? Number 1, poor planning. The design was not well thought out, so it has increased traffic and frustration and discourages shoppers and diners from coming downtown. Worse, it has increased cut-through traffic in adjacent residential neighborhoods and increased the response times of emergency vehicles that can't get through the downtown. These are safety issues, and that is poor planning. Number 2, poor budgeting. Number 3, poor customer service. There are many other issues in the town. High property taxes, flooding, and my time is up. Thank you very much.
I would like to ask Deputy Mayor Jody Rosenberg to have her opening statement. Sarah, would you please pass the mic to
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you for hosting this, and especially on a day where there are other vigils and important places to be. I, too, acknowledge how deeply sorry I am for the people of Pittsburgh and all of, people of Jewish community and communities everywhere. And so my son right now is in Israel, and I hope that we all can come together, so I appreciate your saying that. Thank you. I've lived in this township for over 20 years as a homeowner with my husband Daniel, my son Brandon, who's 20 and in college, my son Jordan, who's 17, and I said in Israel, and my daughter Sydney, who's 14 and sitting over there, and she's a freshman at the Millburn High School. My husband Daniel has commuted on the Midtown Direct for over 20 years to New York City. I'm an attorney with a law firm located on Main Street. I focus my practice on family law, mediation, and real estate transactions. As a mediator, I have significant experience in forging agreements between stakeholders. As an attorney, I've been recognized by my peers as a super lawyer for excellence in practice. I was honored by an appointment by the New Jersey Supreme Court as secretary of the Fee Arbitration Committee. I've co-authored two books on women in the practice of law. I serve as the Essex County trustee of the State Bar Association, on which I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. I start most of my days at YB Fitness talking to residents about their concerns. I volunteered in the schools by producing the Deerfield play for 6 years. I was a Little League chain parent on the fields and in other township-related commissions. And prior to running for this position, I took the time to get to understand how the township operates. I was honored with appointments by the prior township committees to the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee and the Community Service Award Committee. I was tapped to run in 2015 because I was well known in the township as a leader of the Work Mom Group, which was created to provide electronic alerts and support for busy women. When I was helping our members during Hurricane Sandy, people told me they wanted me to run for office, and I believe I received a few write-in votes. I think communication is very important for our residents who are always on the go, and I think that's one of the reasons Work Mom is so trusted. In fact, once I was elected in 2015, I encouraged our township to get its Facebook page up and running. As a liaison to the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee, I spent our last meeting helping download the township app for our members and showing them how to search for township news and events. During my tenure on the Township Committee, I've served on the boards of the Mountain Valley Emergency Communications Board, which is our 911, our Cora Hartshorn Arboretum, the Recreation Committee, Senior Citizen Advisory Committee, and the DMDA. I've participated in the search for new playing fields. I've worked on keeping our seniors engaged in the community. I've shepherded the DMDA through a change in leadership and on the path to better compliance. I've worked with representatives of our township schools and our police department to ensure safe routes to school, including applying for available grants and obtaining a lower speed limit near Wyoming. I was instrumental in hiring the judge, prosecutor, and public defender. I'm sure the bright people in this room see that for the past 3 years, I've been doing a lot of accomplishing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jody and Tara. We would like to move on to the second part of the discussion, which is preset questions. And I has given the candidates 4 questions prior to the debate. All the candidates have been given the same questions, and they will be asked to respond in turn to which in their own words. Each candidate will be given a maximum response time of 3 minutes, each question. after every candidate has responded, if the candidates wish, they can comment briefly, no more than 1 minute, on the other candidate's answer before we move on to the next question. So with that, I'll forward the mic to Dr. Wadhwa, who has the list of questions which have already been given to the candidates.
Thank you. I'll get started with the first question. Millburn downtown. Please comment on the current state of Millburn downtown as compared to the neighboring towns, and please share your thoughts and vision as to how to bring improvements to the downtown area for the vitality of the businesses. What would you keep and what would you change? We will start with Jody.
Thank you, Dr. Wadhwa. I moved to this township because of the downtown. I grew up in Millburn, New Jersey, where we didn't have a downtown, and I was downtown jealous and only wanted a place with a downtown. It was like living on Route 10, so it wasn't walkable. I visited during a street fair, and I was sold. I always wanted a train station and a village to walk in. For the past 9 years, I've had my law firm right in downtown. All 3 of my children have dumped their backpacks when they were in middle school in my office, took money, and enjoyed the downtown. It's extremely important to me and the residents I speak to that we have a thriving downtown with a small town character that is pedestrian and bike friendly and business friendly. The current state, retail appears to be down. Why? It can't be just one factor. Amazon has changed the way people shop. The mall has always been a competitor. And there are some have changed their habits and shop elsewhere due to the congestion from the construction the town did. This year I'm the Township Committee Liaison to our Business Improvement District, the DMDA, which is our consultant is the Executive Director of Springfield and Livingston. So I've heard firsthand how other neighboring towns have also suffered from a tough retail climate. I also hear from my husband, who is General Counsel at Chanel, that Madison Avenue and other retail is also down. Despite this, though, since construction, we've seen new thriving businesses open, such as Pete on Essex, Live Breads, Pliable, Blue Mercury. In preparation for this, I reached out to Barry Beck, who is the owner and founder of Blue Mercury, a store that is now owned by Macy's that has 18 stores in New Jersey. And I asked him, tell me about Millburn. You moved right in Millburn, right after we did construction. Tell me why. And he, who competes with Amazon in a big way, talks about spending 2 days here immersed in our town, loves the way it looks, and wanted to be in a place where we have affluential and educated consumers who want a personal experience and something they can't just get on Amazon. So I'm hopeful, and my vision is that we'll get more businesses like Blue Mercury, and that we can get Mr. Beck in to speak to our other merchants while we help each other grow and go forward. To have a vibrant downtown in this environment, businesses need to offer food, services, or experiences, again, things you can't get by drone. We all need to support our brick and mortar stores. We also need a thriving DMDA, which is our organization, whose mission is to promote and enhance the economic vitality. After learning the DMDA was struggling, I became this liaison, and I've helped shepherd the DMDA through a change in leadership on the path to better compliance with its mission. We're very excited over the improvements that have been made since David Sorkin took over as president after the prior president quit. I would also like to see change in our zoning and parking ordinances that will make the downtown more business friendly. We as Township Committee members can change or enact ordinances to make it easier for businesses to come downtown. I would also like to see decisions made on whether to continue with our Complete Streets project. This is not an easy issue, and I've been grappling with how to express this, as my words are often twisted by others. Although universally successful on a safety level, obviously it's not universally loved. However, I am just as concerned as everybody else is, and we want to make sure our town is vibrant. Thank you.
Jody, I'm wondering why you didn't address the DMDA during the first 2 years that you were in office when you had the opportunity to address the downtown during that time. If you care so much about the downtown, how did the DMDA get into such disarray when the mayor, who didn't show up for an entire year to the Downtown Millburn Development Alliance meetings, nobody was paying attention. Nobody started paying attention actually until I and some other merchants got together, went to the town council, and started asking for help. So no, Jody, you did not shepherd the change. You did not call out this failing organization and demand that they start following the bylaws. You cannot claim ownership of that. The other thing I would like to point out is that John Rudder, who owns Rudder Realty, is supporting me. the place where Blue Mercury has its store right now. He has a huge sign out for me. Many of the property owners in the downtown, they recognize that we are in a crisis, and they met with both of us, and they are supporting me. Thank you. Is there a time limit on the response?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Oh, there you are. Thank you. There were so many claims in there that were not true about the DMDA. And yes, David Sorkin is now the president, and he is doing an incredible job. And I am supporting him completely. And he has new board members coming on, and we are going to turn this town around. We are going to come together as a community. All stakeholders are going to come together, and we are going to work together to make the downtown thriving. Thank you.
Get started with the second question. Millburn demographics have been changing in the past few years. How would you promote diversity in our community? Give an example of how would you encourage more community participation and build an inclusive community. This will start with Tara for this one.
Thank you. Okay. The story of Millburn is the story of America, strengthened by the vitality and energy of new residents and immigrants. This is something our town should celebrate, literally. We should stage cultural festivals and holiday celebrations in Taylor Park and make use of the Bauer Center, which is a terrific facility that is rarely used. Not only would this give the residents an opportunity to learn about each other and celebrate together, it would also bring more people to the downtown. The events can feature music and dance, arts and cuisine. We can also leverage the Paper Mill Playhouse facility since Millburn is the owner now. A number of years ago, when the paper mill was in financial trouble, Millburn made the decision to buy it. They now pay us a nominal rental fee. During the time when the paper mill is dark, in between productions, we should use those facilities to showcase the diversity and vibrance of our community. The paper mill has its own board, but we can and should work with them and leverage our large financial investment in the theater for the good of the town. While the Board of Education is a separate entity and oversees the schools, there is no reason why we could not liaison with the Board of Ed to coordinate township cultural events with the school system. I would establish a township cultural committee to coordinate not only these festivities, but also to augment Millburn's cultural offerings more broadly. Think film festivals, comedy festivals, dance and music festivals, lots of festivals. On such a committee, we would seek input and representation from all the Millburn's diverse communities. Everyone should not only feel accepted in Millburn, but welcomed and celebrated. That is my aim.
I am proud to live in a township that has become more diverse in the 20 years since I came here, and I hope that everybody feels welcome and included. That said, we can and should do better. Our township website can recognize holidays and festivals celebrated by all of our residents. The composition of our township boards and commissions, like zoning and planning, should reflect the diverse community we live in. We're lucky to have Dr. Sharma on our zoning board, and we hope more will seek positions on boards and commissions. So that's a little commercial that with the upcoming year, if anybody is interested in serving on boards and commissions, they should comprise what our community, it should comprise our community. I'm glad on the township committee that it's not just 5 white men anymore. As liaison to the DMDA, I've asked about participation in our upcoming Snowflake Stroll, and I'm told that the Desi Club is also participating. And since the DMDA is responsible for decorations in town, instead of just snowflakes, it would be appropriate that we had decorations for Lunar New Year and other holidays and celebrations embraced by our community. On the bridge by the middle school, there are banners for upcoming events like Rocktoberfest. I recently attended the Dandaya celebration a couple of weeks ago, and I think we could have had some more press for that on our bridge, promoted with a banner so that more people outside of the Indian community could come and celebrate this fun dance party. I was disappointed at the resistance in the school calendar to acknowledge Diwali and Lunar New Year, and I'm glad that members of the community continue to advocate for observance of all holidays. As the liaison to the Senior Citizen Board, I've been approached by members of the Chinese community who have asked us, could we have a Mandarin instructor teach some of our classes? And absolutely, that's something we can look into. So there are ways on a township committee that we can encourage and promote diversity. The Recreation Committee should be encouraged to add youth sports that our diverse community members want. If people wanted a cricket tournament, that should be something that Recreation Committee should be able to do. These are a few of my ideas for promoting diversity. I'm happy to hear any others that anybody might want to share. Thank you.
Question 3, NJ Transit. How would you rate NJ Transit service to and from Millburn? What measures will you take to improve daily commute to the city? What measures will you take to alleviate parking conditions near the train station? Let's start with Jody first.
Thank you. We moved here in 2007, just after the Midtown Direct commenced service, and we chose this township over Westfield because we'd have a direct train. My husband has been commuting for over 20 years, and it's gotten worse lately. He's had commutes that have lasted over 2 hours instead of 35 minutes, and that's just not right. Actually, this afternoon I met Darnell while I was walking in town, and he is a conductor on the New Jersey Transit, and he also was lamenting the fact that New Jersey Transit pays a lot less than Amtrak and other railroads, even though it's the second largest railroad in the country. People don't show up for work, they have to cancel trains, there's delays, the equipment hasn't been serviced. But what can I do as a township committee member? I've tried to advocate for our commuters through the Lackawanna Coalition. It's a nonprofit organization that advocates for better service on the Morris and Essex lines and was founded in 1979 by Millburn commuters. If you didn't know this, they meet monthly at Town Hall, and the next meeting is November 26th at 7 p.m. They have a website, a newsletter, they have coffees at the train station. I participated in Coffee with Commuters, where you are at the Short Hills train station and you ask commuters, how can we advocate for you for better ridership? Not that they always listen because it's very politically organized, but it's important. Last year, in May 2017, when we heard about the upcoming Summer of Hell, I joined other mayors to go down to New Jersey Transit and participated in hearings before the New Jersey State Assembly to advocate for better ridership for our town, because it seemed like Millburn and Short Hills were some towns that were not getting extra buses or extra service. I then arranged for the Boxcar app, which was a fledgling company that made trips to and from the city that people could pay for while we were getting through the Summer of Hell. So I've advocated and tried and will continue to do so. In addition, as far as parking, most commuters seem to find spots, but we could use more at the Short Hills station. In connection with looking for solutions at the Hobart and Highland intersection, we're looking into creating more spots by the Short Hills train station. What transpires at the Summit Medical Group may also factor into how parking is addressed at that train station. At this train station, where you're parked today by the library, there are spots for daily parking. I'm told that if you come as a commuter and you're after 9 or 10 o'clock, sometimes there aren't spots. And apparently they oversell more spots than there are commuters. So it is definitely an issue that is something to be looked into. Without building another parking structure, what they need to do. Summit was very smart, and Summit, the mayor of Summit, instead of building another parking, got involved with Uber and was able to figure out a creative solution. And as a mediator, I love creative solutions, and I thought that was brilliant. I'm not sure if that's something that we would consider, but if we have enough people that are having issues with parking, we need to know. Thank you very much.
I actually met with the mayor of Summit, and we talked about that Uber sharing and how successful it was, and that is a great possibility that we can do that here in Millburn. So many township residents and neighbors from nearby towns commute to New York from Millburn. Our 2 train stations are a tremendous asset, helping to make our towns a desirable home and keep our property values high. However, the process of commuting can be very unpleasant, which we all know and have heard from other people's experiences. And unfortunately, we don't run New Jersey Transit, and the work that is being done causes delays and cancellations, which causes overcrowded and aggravation. Without significant investment from the state and federal governments, we will continue to see service degrade. That is why I think it is important, as a member of the Township Committee, it is important for us to have the ability to reach out to our state and elected officials to make them aware of the local issues and negative consequences associated with degrading NJ Transit service. We must also improve communication between NJ Transit and commuters. We daily send out an email of road closures in town. That should also include information about NJ Transit construction and delays. Emergency notifications could be sent out on a reverse 911 system. We could develop an app that would integrate up-to-date transit information with road closures and parking capabilities, where users can pay by app. This app could even be created by some of our outstanding high school students. This brings me to parking. Parking is an issue throughout the municipality, but especially at the train stations. In downtown Millburn, in particular, there's a constant tug of war between parking for commuters and parking for shoppers. We should investigate a shuttle that would make stops around Millburn and Short Hills and bring people to the train stations and home in the afternoons. This way, they would not need to take their cars out of their own driveways, leaving more parking for shoppers, causing less traffic and costing residents less money. We can use the vehicles that we already have use for with our seniors that are not used during peak commuter times. The cost of a driver would be covered by a nominal fee paid by commuters, which could cost less than their parking fees. As I said, Summit has made a deal with Uber that allows people to Uber to the trains from their homes at a lower fare, and we could look into this as well. Through technology and original thinking, we can tackle our issues. But first thing we need to do is have a leadership in town that is open to new thinking. Instead of running Millburn in the same insular way it's been run for decades.
Time down.
This is the last question. If elected, what are the top issues you will address, and how do you propose to solve them? Each of the candidates have 3 minutes. If you need an additional minute, that's fine. So you could have up to 4 minutes. We will start with Jody.
Safety is an important issue that's been underscored over the past 24 hours. The Parkland, Florida shootings are very fresh in our minds. Keeping our students safe is paramount. As the liaison to the PTOC Safety Committee, I joined forces with the Board of Ed and was able to have the township allocate funds to purchase industry-leading geospatial intelligence software that map the layouts of our schools. What that means is, and God forbid in an emergency situation, first responders would be able to see and be directed to the inner workings of our schools. This is something that I personally was able to get the township to chip in with the Board of Ed to do. In addition, I worked with the PTOC Safe Routes to School Committee to help decrease the speed limit on Wyoming Avenue by the elementary school, and I continue to advocate for pedestrian safety. Obviously, that's one of our big prongs of Complete Streets, and unconditionally successful. Having participated in the process that has earned Millburn schools and the township recognition for silver status for the Millburn Middle School and bronze status for the township by a nonprofit called Trans Options, and I've been working on that with, I see Jen back there, who's leading our PTOC committee. We are now able to apply for grants, and we have applications pending. Safety is really important, now more than ever, but obviously we want our kids to feel safe. We have about 54 police cars. I reached out to Alex McDonald, our business administrator, yesterday just to find out, what do we do after something like yesterday? Do we increase police presence? What do we do? What I'm told is they don't want to always communicate what they do because that's their strategy, but that the police are aware of that. You might have noticed a police car here today when you pulled into the parking lot. So any day of the week, the township is here hoping to take care of your safety. Flood remediation is also high on my priority list. In addition to the recent remediations approved by the Township Committee, I support continuing to work with the mayors of neighboring towns, county officials, and state agencies so we can have a fiscally responsible flood remediation solution. We cannot have another flood affect South Mountain. We've been trying hard to apply to the DEP to fix our substation and to get another emergency generator. We're working on that now. That's something that, thankfully, the South Mountain community has helped us advocate for. And it's important with these storms that have been coming up and everything that we are continuing to always be ready for the next flood. Thank you.
I've already spoken about complete streets, so I'm going to use this time to talk about two other extremely important issues we face: high property taxes and appropriate development to include affordable housing. In order to keep our property taxes down, we should examine where our money goes. About half goes to run the schools, which are a benefit to all of us and attract people to Millburn. Approximately a quarter of our budget goes to support Essex County. We get very little from the county in exchange, and in fact, our contribution exceeds that of other towns. I have relationships with the county executive and freeholders. I would put those relationships to work for Millburn. I would work with the county government to reduce our share of the county budget and to capture back county funds for the projects here in Millburn. For example, although grant funds were available for street work when Millburn overhauled the downtown, we didn't even apply for grant money. In addition, on the municipal portion of the budget, we have not had business people on the township committee who know how to stick to a budget. Not only is Complete Streets grossly over budget, we spend too much on other things, including hundreds of thousands of dollars to put a new roof on the firehouse and legal fees for costly and unnecessary litigation. This type of careless spending has to end. We need to bring in more rateables to Millburn. These are businesses that can take some of the tax burden off homeowners. This means partnering with developers to make better use of our assets. The land currently used for the town dump is prime downtown real estate in walking distance to the train station. I would work with my colleagues on the township committee to relocate the recycling center and develop the current location, potentially for a transit village type project combining retail, office, and residential. There is grant funding available to designated transit villages. As I've mentioned already, we need to do a better job at capturing grant dollars. Speaking of development, I want to talk about affordable housing. All New Jersey communities have affordable housing obligations. Some communities have chosen to work to satisfy those obligations on their terms. We have not. In the words of a township committee member who was voted out last year, we kicked the can down the road. He said that proudly. That is the problem. Right now, we're in a builder's remedy lawsuit with a developer for the Chatham Road development. Once you end up in a builder's remedy suit, you lose a lot of latitude. The builders and the courts can dictate more, taking decisions largely out of the hands of our community. Don't get me wrong, I would not give in on the Chatham Road development. Development needs to be done in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and with the input of the residents. We need more interaction with residents, not less, and that's probably the biggest problem we face in Millburn. We need more transparency and communication. As a merchant on Millburn Avenue, I'm literally on the ground, in town, open and eager to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody and Tara, for your time and your patience. I know coming up here and sitting at the other side of the table. I thank you from everybody in the Millburn community, everybody on the board at IAA. It takes a lot to run for elections. Give up your time for community service. Take time away from your families, your near and dear ones. I thank you both with a big hug to both of you, okay? We'll take 5 minutes for refreshments. If everybody could just, if you'd like to get some coffee, some more samosas, and then we'll get started with part C, which is the questions from the captive audience. We will read out the questions. We have a lot of questions. We cannot do all of them, but we selected about 10 to 12. And some of the questions are directed to which candidate we want to answer. Should answer to the questions, and each candidate will get 1 minute to answer.
Okay, we had about 40 questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for being such engaging audience. Unfortunately, due to the time limitation, we can't go through every question, but we've combined the themes that you've tried to address, and there were some common themes. So the first question is for both the candidates. How do you envision the best way to spend the remaining $5 million to either move forward or address the town's infrastructure? So I'll start with Jody, and then Tara can respond to the question.
Thank you for that question. And just so you know, some of the money is bonded, but we don't have it yet, so we're not paying interest on it. Some of the money we are paying interest on, so it is important to determine this at this point. We are at a crossroads that has put us in more limbo than actually the moving forward in any way. This project was brought on as a comprehensive project that had 3 phases. We got sued in the middle of our first phase and had to spend time defending a lawsuit that turned out to be dismissed and baseless. We spent over $160,000 of your money. I believe the supporters that she's talking about are actually the ones who brought the lawsuit. We need to figure out how to spend smart. I would focus on spending money towards more capital improvements that are going to fix things for safety. But again, I'm just as concerned, but I'm not an engineer. We need to hear better from smart people who are going to tell us the best way to spend this money. Thank you.
As I've been saying all year, I propose we assemble a committee of stakeholders to evaluate the situation and suggest cost-effective measures to improve what we have now. This committee will include traffic engineers, emergency services, personnel, along with residents, merchants, developers, landlords, and the town planner. We need to come together as a community. We need to make sure that we have smart planning, smart budgeting, and listen to the residents so that as we move forward, everybody feels like their voice is being heard. That is how we ended up here in the situation that we're in now. People did not feel heard. People feel like the project got rushed through without input from all the stakeholders. And we need to make sure that as we move forward, everyone's voice is heard. And this will happen as we form a community, a committee of stakeholders. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is, okay, I would like to make one more comment that please hold your applause to the end of the questions and not after every answer. So the next question is, for both the candidates, while all politics is local, the tone of our political discourse is national. If elected, what would you do to help stop the politics of division, racial division, and hostility to immigrants? I'll start with Tara.
So as we saw from yesterday's events, we need to come together as a community. We need to work together. We need to stop criticizing each other. We need to stop slandering each other. We need to stop using Facebook as a means of division for our town. I've also been saying this all year as well. Our town is very, very divided, and it's gotten very ugly out there on all sides, and we need that to stop. So in terms of bringing festivals together and creating community, and that is something that I'm actually very good at, in creating communities and bringing people together and making sure that we have an open dialogue and basically that we just stop attacking each other. And I think that how I've handled myself during this entire campaign and through the primary shows that I am capable of doing that. Thank you very much.
I think, Jody, you can answer the question as well. Do you want me to repeat? Sure. Go ahead. While all politics is local, the tone of our political discourse is national. If elected, what would you do to help stop the politics of division, racial division, and hostility to immigrants?
Thank you. So, as we know, our township committee is still partisan. And that's probably my only real hurdle in this election. Because if I was a Democrat, then I'd have everything. But my opponent registered as a Democrat a couple weeks before she registered. So riding the blue wave has been what has helped her. But all politics should be local in that people should be concerned with who has the experience, who's reasonable, who's level-headed, who's going to be the best one to right any ship when we have an issue. That's a lot more important. And so in local politics, it would be my mission to at some point take, just like the school board, but take partisan politics outside of the local government so that we can focus on who's the best candidate. And so that when we're on the township committee, that I don't have to worry about township committee members making decisions for political reasons. Thank you.
The next question is for Tara. As a resident of South Mountain, flood mitigation is a very important issue. Please tell us how you've approached learning about how flooding impacts our neighborhoods.
Flooding is a huge issue for the South Mountain residents, for the entire town, for the downtown. And I took a walk with Sarah Sherman, who is the president of the South Mountain Civic Association. She has been leading the way of flood mitigation in South Mountain. She toured me around the neighborhood. She showed me where the pumps are. She explained the history of the flooding, and she advised me on how to move forward. So I feel confident that one of my greatest strengths is asking for help. So there, of course, are going to be issues that I do not know about. I do not have 3 years behind me on top of on my township committee. But I know how to ask for help, as I did with Sarah, to inform me about how we need to deal with flooding. So I feel confident that as I move forward and when I'm elected, that I will be able to ask for help from the appropriate people to move our town forward. Thank you.
The next question is for Jody. You talk about everything you want to do, want to see. What are your accomplishments after the first term? So, do you want me to repeat? What are your accomplishments after first term?
I listed them in my introduction, but as explained, we talked about the safety. In the first term, you were here during Complete Streets. The accidents at Millburn Avenue and Main Street went from 32 in 2014 to 13 in 2018. That's an accomplishment. The accidents at Essex Street and Main Street went from 32 in 2014 to 3 in 2018. That's an accomplishment. I don't take all the credit for that, but this was during my term. I helped make sure that our court was well staffed with a judge, a prosecutor, public defender. I examined whether to merge services with Livingston to see if that was something that we would do, whether that was fiscally responsible for the community. I participate in events to breed goodwill in the town. I've married people. I've gone to ceremonies. I'm cutting ribbons. I'm out there being the face of the town, always smiling and always positive. Thank you.
The next question for both the candidates. What, if anything, can be done to keep a multi-story building from being constructed on Woodland Road right next to the Arboretum? Let's start with Tara this time.
So because the town did not proactively deal with affordable housing, we are now in a builder's remedy lawsuit. That means that a lot of the decisions are out of our hands. Mediation is occurring. I do not have knowledge of what is going on because I do not sit on the township committee right now. We are waiting to hear about what the number of units are in terms of affordable housing throughout the town are going to be. And I do know that had we not waited this long, perhaps we could have had more control over how our community is going to deal with that Chatham Road development. Right now it is out of our hands.
As a lawyer, you deal with the facts as you're presented. You don't look back and say, should've, would've, could've. You look at what you have, and you figure out how to get out of a situation or forward in a situation. It is true, prior township committees did not proactively respond to our fair share housing obligations, and now the current township committee members are saddled with that. That said, when the Chatham Road development was proposed, we had our members of our community, especially in the Glenwood section, come and show us how they felt about it. Tell us that they were worried about the density, because it's very dense. There was very good pictures with balloons that showed how high the balloons were that really showed me in ways that I couldn't see just from looking at how important it is. So I actually voted against moving forward with that project that I thought was too dense. And I am advocating, we will get something built. So we can't prevent something from being built, but we can control the density, and that's what I'm working to do. Thank you.
Thank you. This is for both the candidates. Do you believe, or can you cite any evidence that party affiliations, either Democrat or Republican, has any effect on any place in the local township government? Let's start with Jody.
I personally have never acted in a partisan way on the 3 years I've been on the township committee. And again, I am not shy in saying that I wish it was nonpartisan. I've never noticed until election time that the other fellow committee members who have tried to publicly use their position on the township committee to sort of stop for a candidate that they're supporting, that's the first time that I've seen that. And unfortunately, there's even one of our committee members who's used her own email to write to people in the town and ask them to vote for their committee, which is an abuse of power. I don't believe it belongs anywhere, and I haven't seen it until sadly now. I really think it should be about what's best for Millburn, not what's best for a Republican, a Democrat, or somebody in the Barney Purple People Party. It doesn't matter. It's what's best for Millburn that matters to me. Because my opponent doesn't have any experience, she's trying to ride the blue wave. And listen, anybody who supports candidates for a change, I respect, and whatever, everybody can do what they want. But downtown, support a candidate that knows what to do. Thanks.
So as I've already stated, I have relationships with the county executive and freeholders, and I would put those relationships to work for Millburn. I would work with the county government to reduce our share of the county budget and to capture back county funds for projects here in Millburn. So I actually think that it is important that in working with other elected officials throughout the county, that we strengthen these relationships that we do not have in Millburn. Again, the past elected officials who pushed through complete streets did not even try to get any grant money from the county, and this is a huge issue. And right now, our county is a Democratic county, and I think that it is important for those relationships to be established and strengthened for the benefit of Millburn. Thank you.
Can we please ask the audience to hold the applause to the end of the session, please? Okay. Okay, so the next question is for both the candidates. What community service or charity work have you participated in the last 3 months? Let's start with Jody.
That's a great question. And if you ask a busy person to do something, she will, and I love saying yes. 2 weeks ago, I was helping St. Jude in the park when they did a nice event and helped raise money for them. I'm active on the Valerie Fund. I was on the board for many years, and I help with fundraising for the Valerie Fund, which is for kids with cancer, and it's located in Maplewood. I've helped my son with his fraternity when they're raising funds and spread awareness for other charities, and especially after the Parkland shooting. And the schools. I wouldn't call it a charity, but I would call the schools an organization that, even with our funding, needs support. So I participate in Oktoberfest, in all of the events that the schools have, so that we can continue to have a tradition of excellence. Thank you.
So in the past 3 months, I'd like to first talk about my work with the Downtown Millburn Development Association. I have been working with them to rewrite the bylaws, and so I go to all the meetings. I am now working with them on the executive search committee so that we can find a new executive director who has experience and who can help turn our downtown around. I worked with IHN, the Interfaith Hospitality Network, and I hosted a table, and then I asked 5 of my friends to host a table, and that day was a beautiful day, and I am working with that organization. Rocktoberfest. I spent the entire day in the park, along with my daughter, volunteering. Not only did I volunteer my time, I got many donors at high levels to contribute money. Again, Green Nectar Juicery, my business downtown, also contributed. So I contribute financially as well as my time and my energy. Thank you.
One last question. Everybody's worried about Snowflake Parade. So let's ask the question about the Snowflake Parade, and why is the Snowflake Parade being moved to Taylor Park? As a 30+ year event, do you agree with this move? Let's start with Tara.
So the Snowflake Parade was not very well attended, and they lost their main sponsor. And it was sponsored, so for $10,000, we brought in $10,000, the Downtown Millburn Development Association, and one company sponsored the event. They lost that sponsorship. So David Sorkin, as the president of the DMDA, has joined with the chamber, who put on the Snowflake, or the Light Up the Park last year, which was a great event. It was just starting. That event is going to continue now for 2 months. So David has arranged for a parade to happen in the park, and then for this to be drawn out over 2 months to bring people to the downtown. And all the merchants and the residents, this is very exciting, and this is going to be an even better event, lasting more than just a few hours, but is going to really be a draw for the town, and that is what we are trying to do. So I'm very excited about it. I will be there. And it's going to be a great event, and I hope you will all contribute money to that event, because they actually are raising more money so that they can have bigger and better lights this year. So please get involved. Thank you.
We in Millburn don't love change, so it's an interesting question. After 30 years, there are people that still want it, and I understand. But we also do have to evolve. We had an events committee on the DMDA, of which my opponent was on, but I don't think any events were ever planned under her tenure. And what happened was, when the DMDA was going through its internal struggles, they decided to focus more on their mission than on events, because the Chamber of Commerce has been focused on events. The mission of the DMDA is to promote and enhance the economic vitality and improve the business district. So they need to focus on, right now, business to business, and a little bit less on events. So what they decided to do is, after seeing the chamber do a beautiful event lighting up the park last year, which was really well attended, instead of trying to compete against it, they were going to not do the Snowflake Parade. But then they heard a lot of people who said, we still want to march, we want to do it. So David evolved and figured out a way with the rest of the board to still have the Snowflake Parade, but do it in the park. So that's why it was switched. And again, if it's not as well received as the parade, they can always go back next year. But we got to try and evolve. Thank you.
So I think with that, that was the end of the audience question and answer session. We would request both the candidates to give their closing statement. So if you could pass the mic. We started the opening with Tara, so we'll just switch the order, close with Jody, and followed by Tara.
And you have 3 minutes each for the closing statement. Thank you.
Thank you to the audience for taking the time to be here today. I hope some people will stay for the school board election forum as well. It's a long day for you, but it's really important to be educated and use your vote wisely. Do you want someone who is solution-oriented, or do you just want somebody to point out all the problems? I really haven't heard solutions from my opponent. I first met my opponent when she charged the podium at our township committee meetings, screaming at the elected officials, showing little respect for the governmental process. Email after email at all hours came, hardly waiting for a response. In person and public, she would curse and shout. Is that what a government official should do? Is that what our government should look like? And it's interesting when somebody asked earlier about how politics have become divisive. Now, although I'm a Republican, that doesn't mean I approve of everything our president does. And it's really ironic that a lot of the actions I've seen by my opponent almost remind me of our president. So it's interesting.
Please, not in the middle of when we have a candidate talking. Please, respect for everybody. Please. Please. It takes a lot to be up here and take the questions from us here and then from the community. Please. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Actually, I'm going to stand for this because you know why? Because I'm an elected official and I have earned the vote for the past 3 years. And I deserve, when I'm speaking at a township committee, to be listened to. Yet, a lot of the people supporting my opponent have decided that the way to get their message across is by mob rule. Either being disrespectful at township meetings. Right now, you can just see what's going on. This is an example of how I almost feel saddened for the community, or my daughter, that this is what she sees that politics are. Politics are about people working, government is about people working together, and I love government. I don't love the politics I've seen, and I compared it to our national election because that's what I've seen. We had to have police presence because somebody in this room started yelling at me at a meeting in an appropriate point when it was not public discussion. We should have order. This is government. My opponent should realize she's running for an elected position, government. This is not something where you just point fingers and scream and curse and hold scissors. This is where you respect the process. This is where there's Robert's rules of who speaks and when they speak. This is not where people second their own motions. This is where people respect the process and understand what they're doing. So I hope that if I'm reelected, you can realize how dignified and appropriate I like to be with our government. Because whether it's your taxes, your recreation, your safety, I care and I respect the process. And I'm somebody who's common sense, and I'm someone who's an attorney who takes the time to look at issues, and I'm somebody who doesn't get hot-headed and realizes that telling the truth actually gets you forward. So I appreciate the time, and I hope that you make the right decision for Millburn. It's really important this year. Thank you.
Are you ready to go? Yes. This is still on.
Oh, here we go. Got it. Thank you so much for coming out to this forum. Thank you for hosting this forum and giving me the opportunity to share my ideas and my thoughts about Millburn. I'm running for Township Committee to move Millburn forward toward a vibrant, diverse, and response community. We already have 3 lawyers on the township committee, but we don't have any business owners who understand working within a budget and good customer service. So please remember my priorities are good planning, good budgeting, and good customer service. In her published candidate statement, my opponent, who claims to be the
Positive candidate.
has claimed that because I rent a home in town, that I have no vested interest in the effect township spending has on our taxes. Of course, seeking to divide Millburn into renters and owners is not positive, but more than that, it is false. Given that all Millburn landlords pay property taxes, I pay taxes through my rent, as do all renters. Rentals make up 20% of Millburn housing units. I've also invested my life savings in my business in town, just as many as you have in your homes. Sadly, Jody has it exactly reversed. By voting again and again to push through complete streets with poor planning, poor budgeting, and poor management, my opponent has shown little regard for the effect that the multi-million-dollar downtown overhaul, expensive litigation, and other out-of-control spending has had on our taxes. In the same statement, my opponent falsely accused me of being self-serving because I am a Millburn Avenue merchant. Again, it's quite the opposite. As a merchant, I know about serving customers. For the Township Committee, the customers are you, the residents and the taxpayers of Millburn. My opponent also says that I am a one-issue candidate. On that point, I must concede that she is correct. My one issue is Millburn. Millburn is a special town. It has so many tremendous assets. The people who live and work here, the schools, the location, the parks, the reservation, the paper mill. The list goes on and on. It's a premier town, and it should be run that way. Millburn deserves better. The residents deserve better. I am running for Millburn Township Committee to move Millburn forward, and I ask for your support to do so. Thank you very much.